Good morning, everybody. It's Pastor John with another edition of Monday Morning Quarterback. So yesterday we started our new sermon series, The Advent Conspiracy. And you might be thinking, Pastor John, have you taken leave of your senses? It's not Advent yet. And that is true. It is not Advent yet. But the sermon series, The Advent Conspiracy, is essentially going to be developing different principles for how to keep a holy Advent. And so it makes more sense to do the sermon series before Advent starts so that you can use those principles during the season of Advent. And so this will be a 3-week series, and there are 4 principles to the Advent conspiracy. And the first principle is worship fully. Now, yesterday we talked about the story of the shepherds who were keeping watch, in their flocks by night. And the angels came and announced that Jesus was born. And then they went to the manger in Bethlehem to praise God. And then they went off to tell people what had happened. The idea that this story communicates is one of the most fundamental ideas about Advent, that when we forget it, we sort of lost the whole meaning of the season of Advent. Advent is a season of preparation for Christmas. So we take these 4 weeks leading up to Christmas to prepare our spirits to receive this gift of the birth of the Christ child. Now, Christmas is not the end of Advent necessarily, although it is the end of Advent, but it is the beginning of a new story. And that's the important thing that we want to keep in mind as we consider how we keep our Advent. So the principle, worship fully, all that really means is the purpose of Advent is to prepare our hearts, to prepare our souls, to prepare our minds, so that when we arrive at Christmas Day, we have arrived, metaphorically speaking, at the foot of the manger. Now, that's important because that's the goal. That's the end of Advent, and that's where the Christmas story then begins. So if we get lost during Advent, get lost in purchasing gifts or going to parties or going into debt or just doing all the crazy things that we do during Advent, then we're chasing down the wrong story. And that's the whole point of the Advent conspiracy. It is to get us focused on the right story for our Advent journey. And so the first principle is worship fully. Now, one of the things that I've heard over the years is Christians who say, I won't go to a store unless they say Merry Christmas. Our president has actually even, campaigned in the past about this, encouraging people to only buy gifts at stores where they say Merry Christmas. Now, the truth of the matter is, I don't care what you say. First of all, I try to avoid stores during Advent because it's madness. But I don't care what you say during Advent. I don't care if you say Merry Christmas or Happy Holidays or Happy Hanukkah or Merry Kwanzaa or whatever you say. I don't care. Because Advent, Christmas, these are not stories that they tell in the stores. These are not about commerce. These are about God breaking into humankind. God becoming one of us. Becoming one of us. In the form of this innocent child, wrapped in bands of cloth, lying in a feeding trough for animals, to insignificant parents in a nowhere town in an occupied nation. That's how God chose to reveal himself to the world. And if you think the proper place to celebrate him is at Macy's or Amazon.com or whatever, then you need to recalibrate your spiritual compass. Jesus' story isn't told in the stores. So I don't care what they say, because it's not their story to tell. They can't they can't give me a Merry Christmas. All they can give me is stuff. But the gift that gives me a truly Merry Christmas, that's the gift that I find if I find myself at the foot of the manger on Christmas Day. You know, I'll tell you this. I used to be the king of the bah humbugs at Christmas, king of Ebenezer Scrooge. And I'm talking about when I was a professional ordained minister. I hated Advent because it was just so cluttered, so full of junk that had nothing to do with Christmas. And I found myself getting a Christmas holiday just thankful that it was all over so I could get on with my life. And that's no way to keep a holy Advent. And then I discovered the principles of the Advent conspiracy. And it changed the way I did Advent, which meant it changed the way I experienced Christmas. And now I welcome both Advent and Christmas because I know it's an invitation. It's an invitation to experience the holy. It's an invitation to experience something that this world most of the time crowds out with all of the bells and whistles and the pomp and circumstance that we surround this season with. And so I hope that you'll follow us during this sermon series. Like I said, it's just 3 weeks. Hope that you'll follow us. Hope that you'll prepare yourself to keep a holy Advent. Worship fully, spend less, give more, and love all. Those are the principles that we'll be exploring in the next few weeks. And if you go on this journey with me, I promise you that you will have a different experience when Christmas arrives. But for now, worship fully, because worship is the only appropriate response to God with us. Have a wonderful week, my friends. God bless.